Franchising is the most misunderstood and most overlooked form of entrepreneurship. We're here to educate you and help you find the entrepreneur within. Franchising is not all about the French fries.
We find that individuals who are exploring business ownership tend to have a lot of misperceptions and misunderstandings about the franchise industry. So what we want to do is help prospective business owners make confident and educated decisions before moving forward or not moving forward with a business. Welcome to Unpredicted Entrepreneur.
Hi, welcome to episode 85 of Unpredicted Entrepreneur. I'm Roxanne Rapsky, and this is my colleague, Sarah Wasco. We created this podcast to bring you education and information about business ownership and all things franchising. Today, we have a very interesting guest who's going to share with you his journey in franchising. He is the author of Stop Chasing Two Rabbits. He's a multi-unit franchise owner. And he's the vice president of franchise development at Neighborly. His name is Patrick Hyland. We call him Pat.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. You know, we both read your book, and I have to tell you, I was driven to tears by your book. I mean, it's really a touching story, but there's so much good advice in your book for budding entrepreneurs, and we thought we needed to get the word out there and have you on so you could talk to us a little bit about your background, what drove you to get into franchising as an owner,
Sure.
And then about your book and some of the lessons we have for our listeners today.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I never thought I would ever write a book, but I think really our journey and our life's plan and our path that we've been on, it just became natural for me to do so because I've run across so many aspiring entrepreneurs over the years that have said, man, this is a big decision. What do we do at this point in my life and my career and how we get to this point? Or what do I keep going down the same path I'm on right now with a career, find a new one, or do I start a business? And that can be emotional. And uncertainty is a bad thing. Mm-hmm. So the goal through that was really with the book to provide clarity. But as you mentioned, I've been in and around franchising now for over 31 years this year.
Wow.
And some as the vendor, working as a vendor for franchisees of franchisors, selling products and equipment and everything to that after 17 years. And then working for a franchisor directly, like Neighborly, the largest home services franchisor in the world. And that's been a great, unique perspective. Mm-hmm. But also, as you read in the book, my wife and I are also multi-unit, multi-concept franchise owners. So we literally, live out what I preach every single day. It doesn't make it any easier always, but it definitely is something that we believe in really in franchising. And I love this space we're in.
It is an amazing space, and I love it because we get to change lives. So were you working for Neighborly at the time when Blake had his accident?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Yep.
So you were in business of helping people get into business.
Yep.
You were very diligent about goals and planning with your financial advisor. Yep. You had a number for retirement. Mm-hmm. So kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, that actually even happened before I got part of Neighborly and really got to that point. My wife and I have always been, focused on goal setting and planning. And if I be honest, this morning I thought about that again. I was actually the one that was more focused on it. She just went along with it. She's going, yeah, I'd be like, hey, let's do our goals for this year. But there was one opportunity that came to both of us, and it was our mentor that one day says, hey, do you have a written specific definition of what financial independence looks like, when you're going to get there and how you're going to get there? And we're like, no. He goes, then how do you expect to get somewhere when you don't know when it is? You don't know how you're going to get there and what it's going to look like. And I said, and so he really kind of helped us craft over a period of time. It was, pulling it together, and it was specific. It was written that my wife and I had. And at that point, our goal was by age 55 to have $5 million of income producing assets, generating a minimum of 5% return, which is $250,000 a year of passive income without working and no real personal debt. And Robert helped my wife and I crystallize that and clarify that. And then we had started working that plan. You had mentioned my son's accident. When he suffered a severe traumatic brain injury, I was 46 at the time. I was 9 years away from that age 55, and I'll be candid with you. We had the goals, we made some decisions that took us towards the goal, but we weren't on track to even hitting half of our goal at that time. We're only looking at about 2.2 to 2.3 is what we were calculating at that point. But our whole world got turned upside down that day.
Yeah.
And our perspective changed.
Yeah.
So we ended up, after Blake's accident, and they came back, he was a competitive gymnast, and you're not almost 15 years of age as a boy in Texas doing gymnastics unless you're probably going to do something with it, right? He was pretty good at it. And when they said if he does live, he'd be on a ventilator in the nursing home the rest of his life, my wife and I put a stake in the ground and we said, no, our God's a God of healing, and we believe our son will walk out of this hospital one day. And my wife quit her job. She moved from Waco, Texas, up to the Dallas-Fort Worth, right where we are, at the Ronald McDonald House in Dallas, and she lived there for 16 months.
Wow.
Our son went from 140 some pounds down to 110, was in a diaper again, couldn't walk, talk, or move. Eyes were fixated to the right, had a feeding tube directly ported in a trach, and they tried to send us home. And we go, no. And so we did a life plan study. And out of San Antonio, and we asked them, what would it take to make sure Blake was taken care of? God forbid something happened to my wife and I.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want him to go to a state institution. We wanted to make sure that he was cared for at the level that we would want, God forbid something happened to us. And they came back to us 3 weeks later and said it would take no less than $12 million up to $23 million to care for him. We weren't even at that first level. And then we had this come up. So that's when my wife and I, had a decision to make. What are we going to do? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, and the whole journey of the book and, everything that happens throughout the book is a lot of the decisions aspiring entrepreneurs go through. We were no different. The excitement, the worry, the unclarity, hey, what about this or what about that? We learned all that. And the benefit of what I wanted to do was package this up was to kind of shorten the learning curve for others that are considering doing the same.
Yes. We hear that so much, do I need to get a job? Do I want to own a business? And the title is perfect. You have to evaluate what it is you're going to follow and follow that. And you kind of got forced into that situation. But when you guys realized what it was going to take financially, you put together a strategy and a plan and became business owners. Yep. And so tell us a little bit about that journey. You started with Massage Envy, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about the first one.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Everybody asks and they go, so your wife was a massage therapist? No, my wife we've been together over 29 years. She's never given a massage. I promise you, she hasn't. And
much to your chagrin.
But we saw actually at the Ronald McDonald House, when Blake was going through, when they lived there, but they were going through therapy, she took him to rehab from 9 to 4 every single day for 16 months. My wife's just the rock of our family. And she cared for him. And during that, we had somebody that came in and they gave Blake massages to work through the tone that was coming from the strokes. He suffered massive strokes. I mean, he went, So after all that, they kind of worked through all that. And then Cindy, one day, she goes, and she started seeing a benefit of that. She goes, we need to do this for people here in Waco. So I started doing research. And I say research, I was driving from Waco to Dallas. I picked up the phone. I called Massage Envy Corporate in Scottsdale, Arizona. I said, you don't have one in Waco? Said, hey, we've been trying to get in there for years. And it just came available. And I said, we want it. And they're like, who are you? And I said, listen, because I've had those calls too, right?
Yeah, right.
When I have a candidate come through. Yeah, it's like, what do you mean you want that? We had a purpose. We had a mission at that point, right? But it was over $730,000 of an investment, in our first location. And, people asked us, and they said, wasn't that scary?
Of course it was.
And we said, of course. But what was scarier is, God forbid something happened to my wife or I, who's taking care of Blake?
Right.
So it was in perspective.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So we went out and did it. We thought we were going to have 2 locations in 5 years. Well, we ended up having 3 in 3 years, and it went faster than we thought. That's the one thing I can share with you about franchising that we've experienced every single time, because everybody goes, yeah, you've signed 11 franchise agreements now, and you've done this that many times with different concepts and this, that, and the other. And I said, so it's easy for you. And I'm like, no. It's no different from the first to the 11th agreement we signed. I go through the same stuff. It's normal that you go through it, but having that clarity of why you're doing with, what you're doing is the important thing. And then what I always find out is this: it's cyclical. We will go through it. We'll understand why we're going to do what we're going to do. And then 3 months into it, we're going, boy, this is going faster than we thought. 6 months into it, we're going, why didn't we do this sooner? A year into it, we're going, let's do it again. And then we go through the same thing, right? So it's normal. So when people go through these emotions and, second guessing or whatever it is, that's a completely normal thing.
So you're saying that you had fear on unit number 10 and 11, just like you did on unit number 1.
And we're going to do it again. And I know we'll kind of, and but does it make it easier because of proven track history? Listen, if my wife and I were doing this on our own, I'd be really afraid, because if something happened to where it didn't work out, that's all on us. We take it all. We take the full burden. The beauty that we realized about being a part of a national franchise brands is this. And this was advice given to me when I validated with a Massage Envy owner. He says, what if we're right? What if we build the kind of businesses that we say we do? We get the support that we say that we do from corporate. We sell them for what we say we do. I was like, that's great. I'd love that. He goes, but what if we're wrong? I said, yeah, what's that look like? He goes, when you're part of a national franchise brands, they don't just want to close the doors. Typically you're either going to have another owner of that brand buy it. They're going to find a buyer or anything. They don't just shut the doors. But he said, Pat and Cindy, if you realized it and it was Pat and Cindy's massage business, I'd be concerned. And he goes, but what if we're right? And that took a lot of the fear away from me.
Good.
Is because it wasn't just on us. Listen, my wife's brilliant. Now my wife, as you read in the book, she has a high school education. She left Massage Envy as the number 1 franchisee out of over 1,100 locations, though. So I really don't believe it doesn't matter how much money you have, how little money you have, what your education level is, what's your age, how old you are, how young you are. All that matters is, and you've heard the adage, if you will just do what most will not do for just the next few years, then you can do what they cannot do for the rest of your life.
Yes.
And that's what we focused on.
Well, and the other beautiful thing about this is you both understand the importance of following the system, because there's a lot of franchisees that get in and I don't know why, but they want to do it their own way. They don't want to do it the way the franchisor is telling them. And that's not how you gain speed and scale or whatever. It's you got to follow the system.
Yeah. My wife will do validation calls all the time, and people say, how do you get so successful? She goes, because I do what they told me to, and I follow the systems and the processes. And like, yeah, but what else? They're looking for this, this golden egg, which doesn't exist. I mean, there's a couple other things I will share with you why my wife was so successful in really kind of building these teams and the brands. Number one, she followed the systems. She didn't go out and try to reinvent it. She just put the fuel into the engine and what was already built. Second of all, she took advantage of the franchise network. That is something we didn't realize how valuable it was until we got into franchising. So you get the support from franchisor and the systems and the business model, but the network. So for example, at Massage Envy, they do monthly massages, right? Under memberships. So she would go in there and try to say, hey, who is number 1 at membership conversion or retention? And she would go to that franchise owner's location and spend a couple days with them. She'd find out who was the best in retail skincare because they do aesthetics work, and find out who did the most amount of retail. She'd bring those best practices back. And guess what? She just increased her numbers. So it's taking advantage of the franchise or what they have, but also the network with it as well.
That's such a good point.
Very good point. She was very proactive, and she utilized the information that was available to her. Yeah. She sought it out and used it.
Yeah. Because it really is on you, right? It really is on you. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is I'll share with you is my wife is great at building teams, right? That's the thing. And I would ask any owner or aspiring entrepreneur that wants to work for wants to build a business. I'd ask them this: would you work for you?
Yeah.
Would you work for you? Because here's the other thing: would you work for you? But my wife was able to build a business that was the preferred company in her community, in her industry, that people wanted to work at. As massage therapists, they were attracted to it. It wasn't just because it was massage envy. There was some allure to that, yes. But they knew the best massage therapists knew where all the other massage therapists were. And when you treated good people, if you're the preferred company in your community, in your industry that people want to work for, and you're the type of person somebody wants to work with, it's not going to be as hard to find good people, because that's what I hear all the time. It's hard to find and keep good people.
How are you treating those
But
people?
how are you treating them?
Yeah.
And the reason, after we sold, my wife, as you know, we built those businesses in 6 years and 2 months, and a private equity company bought us.
So how many units did you have?
We ended up having 3.
3 total.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep. So we built those, and after that, Blake never had to worry about a thing. We achieved the goals. And
just off of those 3 units, building them and
between
selling
that,
them.
Well, here's the other thing. I say that just off of the sale of those 3 units and all of the other income producing assets we generated in addition to it. Because over those years, we didn't just build out Massage Envy. The free cash flow allowed us to go out there, invest into real estate, invest into private equity, invested in other opportunities out there besides.
Gotcha.
So a business, I'm a firm believer that a business is a vehicle to help you generate other income producing assets. Now, there are people that are going to be like, hey, I just want to replace working for the man and I want to just run my own business. I get that. The reality is you can do so much more when you build a business and by diversifying and getting other income producing assets with it as well.
So smart, because you don't have all your money in one place. And so you have, if something falls through or doesn't work as planned, you have other income producing resources versus just, that one from your employer that may or may not be there tomorrow, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right.
So now you've divested of your Massage Envies. What next?
Mm-hmm. Well, after that, we went out, we got into a space. I'll just say it's coffee. We really didn't, we got into that and we just, it wasn't for us.
Okay.
Is what I'll say. Not everything. We didn't go crazy and, we were able to exit that, but I'm going to just share with you, I didn't do due diligence. That's why my second book one day, I've got to write one, is all the things I wish I would have known before I started a franchise, right?
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
I think that's something that we didn't know certain things, right? And I think it can help others. And that one was a very difficult one for us to make happen and pull together. So we ended up going out there and then we will have opened 4 new franchises within the last 2 years. In December here, in less than a month, we'll open up our 4th one in 2 years. So back to back, they're dog bathing and grooming franchises.
Oh, that's a hot market.
Yeah.
It is.
Better. Well, it's different than dealing with massage therapists, I'll say, because you don't have to deal with that. You get to deal with dogs all day. I was on my drive up here to see you. My wife, I called my wife, said, "What you doing?" She's, "I'm in the corner right now, petting a shelter." She goes, I love. She loves every dog on the planet now. I can tell you. So she loves to pop into the centers now, and get to know them. She doesn't. At this point, the beauty of it is my wife building the team, like you had just mentioned, Roxanne, about building it is so important. When we sold, we had a lot of the team members that wanted to follow, but because you typically have a non-solicit, they had to quit their job for 6 months before we could ever hire them, or wait 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So, but now so my wife really does work on the business and not in it. So it's not that she doesn't work hard. I'm not saying that. It's just what she spends her time on every day looks different.
Yes.
Than it did when you were starting your first one, if that.
So tell us about her. You said she had a high school education, but she also worked in corporate America, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what did she do? What were her skill sets that she gleaned that you feel transferred into owning a business? besides being a great
all right,
leader?
I'm just going
team
to
builder?
say this. I would think a lot of people would agree, but I believe some of the best, if not most of the best business owners are women. I believe some of the best leaders I've ever worked for are women, and my wife is one of them. My wife did not have a college education. She, like Ed mentioned, so she would actually. There's a whole story that goes to it. She did play college softball, but then she had our daughter.
Okay.
She was, and so when I met my wife, she was 2.5. So she wasn't able to finish college. So I adopted our daughter as my own. Throughout that time, because of that, she would go out and work for companies, and she'd start everything from receptionist, work herself up to being an executive assistant. And then she'd go from company to company and do really good and grow. But it was consistent and it was heartbreaking across the board. She would come home at some point and say, and she'd be in tears. And I said, "What happened?" She goes, "I can't go any farther because I don't have a degree." And literally the last opportunity she was at, she was running the largest EBITDA division within the company, generating division. And she was hiring people for more money, all right, than less experience than she had, right? And she was going to manage them. And she asked why, and they said, "Because you didn't have a degree." And it just shriveled up her spirit. And I told her, "Babe, that's not your identity. That's not, first of all, who God says you are as his daughter, but also that's not who you are. You're brilliant, you're talented and everything." And my wife went out there, and fast forward after Blake's accident, she literally just went in and implemented everything. And why? And I say that I believe there's a lot of great men business owners. Don't get me wrong. But what my wife does well that I see that I don't have the ability to do as well is she can do so many things at one time. You know what I'm saying? I am very task oriented. And
One
her
thing
and her
at a
team,
time.
all of her ladies, they're able to,
Yeah.
my wife, I'll be at home and I'll be doing this. I'll be talking to somebody and she's doing 8 different things and I'll say something. She goes, and I'm like, "How do you do that?" Right? Well, so anyways, not to digress, but what my wife was able to do was really just come in and just take those natural gifts or skill sets that you learn in corporate America and put them to your own benefit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, when she sold the businesses for the number that we sold, because in our 3-year anniversary, halfway, after we opened, I mentioned we thought we were going to have 2 in 5 years, and we ended up having 3 in 3 years. I remember taking her to a steakhouse. It's called 135 Prime in Waco, and we're celebrating our 3-year anniversary. And I said, "Babe, do you remember that quote I shared with you that said, if we would do what most would not do for just the next few years, then we could do what they could not do for the rest of your life?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you realize that in just the last 3 years, we've outperformed the last 17 years combined?"
Wow.
Her spirit just started.
Wow.
She started seeing that confidence. And then when we sold 3 years and 2 months after that, so, just over 6 years later, she had this super confidence of, hey, my value and worth, right? And how, business world would see was significantly better. So then she took that. And then the big decision was she didn't have to work again. I remember we sold on a Friday in November, Friday of 2021, Friday in November of 2021. And
wait, I just want to, so that's the number that's when you sold for this big number.
Yep.
Private equity offered you 1 year after COVID and all the shutdowns and everything, and you still performed well enough for private equity to come in.
Absolutely. We were shut down for 3 months.
That's very impressive.
We were shut down for 3 months. And, because, we also are a firm believer in a type of a model. I have my own preferences. My wife and I look at recurring revenue models.
Yeah.
We prefer that. Why? Because you get an annuity, and PE was much more happy to come in and buy something where you have 3,000 members under agreement,
right.
Compared to, you got to eat what you kill, the next day, right? So we wanted to have certain things. And that's what's nice about the book as well, is we developed a criteria to evaluate franchises.
Yeah.
So when you find the right one, it's the right one. And that's why we kind of put that together. So yes, we, so the next day after we sold, because it took 3-4 months of due diligence to finally get to close. And they had been pursuing us for 2.5 years up to that point. So
Wow.
it was a long process, right? But they finally got the number right. And she closed. That Saturday, she's sitting around the house, just kind of dilly-dallying, looking at no emails, no nothing. And on Sunday, she goes, "What do you want to do next?" I was like, "You're crazy. You don't have to." And I said, "Listen, just get me through the holidays. Let's just wait until after the holidays." So, in the meantime, this tells you a little bit about my wife. She went in and got fully certified from the American Red Cross. And got immersed into that, went out disaster help and all that. So by the spring of that following year, I thought she had forgotten about it. And she goes, "Hey,
Hey.
what do you think about this?" And then I was like, "You know what? If we do this, we got to make sure we have the team." Well, guess what? She had her employees prompting her, saying, "Hey, what are you doing next? We want to do something," or whatever it was. So we ended up having a dinner meeting. I got everybody to a restaurant. I looked at them. I said, "If we're going to do this, you got to tell me we're all in as a team." Right. So why I bring all this up, and I'm going back to it, was my wife. Her biggest heart part of this was she wanted to give back to those team members. And she has such a big heart. And so we provide a profit sharing. We give 10% of the company back to our managers and our leaders, and to be able to, and today, Caitlin and Josh closed on their house for the first time.
Oh, that's awesome.
And this is a plan they've been working on with Cindy and I for 4.5 years.
Wow.
And they came to us and said, "Hey, this is where we're at." They had to overcome a lot of things financially. They had to overcome credit things and this and that. And they worked with us, and we worked with them, and we developed them and grew them within the company and gave them opportunity, but also helped them. And today they closed on their home for the first time.
That is so rewarding and so special. There's so much more to your business than just the business.
It's better.
Yes.
It's the best part of it.
We appreciate you so much. You've had such great information. We can talk forever. Tell us, if somebody's listening today and, maybe they're chasing two rabbits, they're afraid to potentially, start a business. What kind of tip or advice might you give someone that really is evaluating business ownership?
I would say just pause, take the time. And if you're married, get with your spouse.
Yes.
Get with your
100%.
spouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
And make sure, that they're seeing it the same way. And if not, whether it's this book, which is designed to help people walk through a simple exercise to help them determine if business ownership is right for them or not at this time, find something, whatever that is, and then figure that out together collectively, and then go forward in what that is. Because when you know the importance of what it's, I'll leave it at this. If somebody never accomplishes, Sarah, their dreams and their goals and their needs and their quality of life requirements, all I ask them to ask themselves is, what would the consequences of that be? And who would the victims of those consequences be besides themselves? Because the decisions they make as husbands of wives, as wives of husbands, as parents of children, as children of parents, the decisions we make don't just impact us. They impact so many other people. So know what your decision is. Too many people later on in life never knew that they actually had a decision to make. I want people to at least have the opportunity to make the decision so that they can do the right thing. And that's why I love franchising. That's why I love this, free entrepreneurial spirit that we have that's out in our country, and the free enterprise system that we have. People just need to take advantage of it. But stop, go through it, understand why they're doing what they're doing. And then I just pray that they, be nervous like my wife and I, but when they realize, what's the old adage? When you know your why, you can endure anyhow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Awesome way to end. Thank you so much. So if anybody wants to learn more, would love to read the book, how can they find the book or reach you?
Just go to www.stopchasing2rabbits.com, TWO in the title. And And you can go there. You can get on Amazon. My wife and I calculated it's going to take me 7 years and 2 months to make up what it costs for me to make this book. I'm not using this to make a lot of money on this book. I get 51 cents from Amazon. Amazon, if you want to invest in a stock, I'd invest in that. But go to that, or you can get the paperback copy. And if you want, I'd be happy to put a little inscription in there for you as well.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We know you drove in from Waco and are headed back to Waco shortly. Again, I am Sarah Wasco, S-A-R-A, no H. I am joined by Roxanne Rapske, R-A-P-S-K-E. We are very active on LinkedIn, so please seek us out there. We would love to connect with you. You can also follow our YouTube channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel, FranNet of Dallas, Fort Worth, and Oklahoma, where you can enjoy other episodes of Unpredicted Entrepreneur. And you can also subscribe to Unpredicted Entrepreneur wherever you like to listen to your podcast. So I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.